Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. There's been a lot of buzz around the Indianapolis Colts recently, especially concerning our general manager Chris Ballard. Some of our recent draft picks, both from this year and last, have been cut, and that sparked quite a debate. Now, cuts can be tricky because sometimes a player gets cut only to be added to the practice squad later. I'm not entirely sure who's on the practice squad right now, but some folks are saying our coach just can't draft. Honestly, I find that a bit amusing, especially since we're talking about 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks here. Those guys aren't usually expected to make the final roster, and if they do, that's a bonus. Looking at the bigger picture, the Colts have built a pretty solid team. I'm not saying we're the best in the league, but we're definitely one of the most balanced Colts teams we've seen in a while. Sure, I've had my complaints about our secondary, we'll get into that later, but when it comes to our offense, we're looking strong. We've got Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., and a solid offensive line featuring Bernard Ryman, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, and Braden Smith. Plus, we've got some promising talent like Adonai Mitchell, drafted out of Texas, and Alec Pierce, who's had one of the most well-rounded training camps I've seen. Our backup quarterback is Joe Flacco, a Super Bowl winner who was also last season's comeback player of the year. And of course, we've got Anthony Richardson. At running back, Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson have both shown up big in training camp. This offense is packed with potential. Shane Steichen, our offensive coordinator, is like an extra weapon on the field. He's the guy who helped get the Eagles to the Super Bowl and played a big role in developing Jalen Hurts into an MVP-caliber player. The hope is that he can do the same for Richardson. Remember, Richardson is only 22 years old and still the youngest starting quarterback in the league for the second year in a row. I'm not expecting him to throw for 4,000 yards or 30 touchdowns right away. The key is for him to keep improving with every game. Chris Ballard deserves a lot of credit for putting this offense together. He bet on our O-line last year, and it paid off. He drafted Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, extended Pittman, and built an offense that's hard to find fault with. The tight end position might not be the strongest with Kylan Granson, Mo Alie-Cox, and Drew Ogletree, but they've shown they can perform well in Steichen's system. Richardson is going to be the key to our success. Last year, he racked up a ton of touchdowns in limited playing time, so there's no reason he can't do it again this season. You can tell he has a natural feel for the game. He sees defenses, knows where to go with the ball, and just needs to work on his accuracy. The guy's 6'4" and 250 pounds, and when he throws, the ball just rockets out of his hand. His mechanics are solid, even if he was a bit shaky in that first preseason game against the Bengals. But from what I've seen, and from what the experts, including former quarterbacks, are saying, Richardson's got what it takes. Richardson is a special talent, and he just needs time to develop and get more reps. Chris Ballard, our GM, has played a huge role in building this team, not just on offense, but on defense too. He's hit on some late-round picks like Jaylon Jones, Zaire Franklin, and E.J. Speed. Jaylon Jones in particular has caught the attention of a lot of Colts fans, but for him, it's all about finding consistency. Then there's the trade for DeForest Buckner. We gave up a first-round pick to get him, and he's still one of the best in the game, especially when we first got him after his Super Bowl run with the 49 ERs. Our defensive line has some solid depth too, with guys like Dio Dayingbo and Tyquan Lewis. Lewis is technically a starter, while Latu is coming off the bench, though he's definitely good enough to start. The Colts are just bringing him along gradually, but he could take over that starting spot soon. We've also got some rookies who've had impressive training camps, adding even more depth to the roster. The Colts have a good roster. It all comes down to execution and staying healthy. When you lose a player like Anthony Richardson, it's tough to expect much, but this team still managed to win 9 games last season. Sure, everyone talks about that critical 4th and 1 where Jonathan Taylor was kept off the field and Tyler Goodson was wide open, but the pass was just a bit off. If that play had gone differently, we'd be having a whole different conversation right now. Everyone's hyped about the Houston Texans, and I get it. They're a great team. But the reason no one's talking about the Colts the way they're talking about the Texans is because of that one game. If the Colts had made the playoffs, I don't see why they would have lost to the Browns at home. The last time we played the Browns, it was a high-scoring shootout, but penalties killed us, and our defense just couldn't hold up. The Browns' defense got worse as the season went on, and Joe Flacco, who's now our backup, just ran out of gas. They were dealing with a ton of injuries, even down to their 5th quarterback. If the Colts had won a playoff game, people would be saying, hey look, Anthony Richardson is coming back, and this team was already good last season. Sign me up. But since they didn't make the playoffs, it's like they're flying under the radar. It's strange, honestly. Ballard has been getting a lot of criticism, but from what I've seen, the Colts have one of the best rosters in the AFC. I've been watching them all through training camp and watched every game last season, and I can tell you, they had a great draft. Name another team that picked up talents like Latu Latu and Adonai Mitchell, both players who are ready to make an immediate impact. In free agency, the Colts mainly focused on bringing back their own guys. The big signings were Joe Flacco and adding Raekwon Davis on the interior, but we didn't need to do much because our roster was already strong. We did try to trade for L'Jarius Sneed, but in terms of free agents, we didn't push too hard, and we didn't need to. In terms of coaching, I'm not going to say we have one of the best head coaches just yet, since Shane Steichen is only in his second year. But it's fair to say he has one of the sharpest minds in the league. Just think about where we were a year ago. We only won 4 games, and it was one of the worst Colts teams we've ever seen. The locker room was a mess, the culture was shot, and players weren't even showing up on time for meetings or workouts. Fast forward to now, and we were just 15 yards away from winning the division. Everyone's saying we just need to compete with Houston, but I'm saying we need to aim for winning the AFC. People have their opinions about Anthony Richardson, especially since he only started in 4 games last year. He's had some rusty moments this offseason, but once Steichen fully implements the playbook and gets Richardson on the move, using his legs and letting him step up in the pocket, I think we'll see a different story. One thing people get wrong about Richardson is his football IQ. He's one of the smartest quarterbacks out there, with no problem reading defenses, making quick decisions, and getting the ball out fast. His main issue has been accuracy, but that's more about controlling his powerful throws than a mechanics problem. If there's one coach you'd want working with Richardson, it's Shane Steichen. He's helped develop talents like Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts, and the Colts saw Richardson as a mix of both. But it's not just about his skills, it's also his character and leadership. The Colts believe Richardson is the guy who can lead them to great things. Now, I'm not saying we're going to win the Super Bowl this year, or even in the next 5 years, but with Richardson, we have a real shot. When we talk about the top quarterbacks in the league, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Richardson isn't at that level yet, but he has the potential to get there. The problem with past quarterbacks like Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, and Jacoby Brissett was that they gave us a safe floor, but no real ceiling. Phillip Rivers did get us to the playoffs, and he did a great job, but Richardson brings a different kind of potential. Teams don't know how to defend Richardson, and that's a huge advantage. There was an anonymous coach who recently said he's terrified of Richardson's potential. It's up to the Colts to help him reach that ceiling, and they'll do that by getting him reps, keeping him on the move, and utilizing his athleticism. Sure, he might only complete 60% of his passes next year, but when you factor in 1,000 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground, his threat as a runner opens everything up. It's the same with Jonathan Taylor. He's so good that when Richardson runs a play-action pass, linebackers are drawn up, trying to avoid getting caught off guard by Taylor. And that's when you see Alec Pierce or Adonai Mitchell streaking across the middle, wide open. This Colts offense is going to be elite, it's going to be electric, and I can't wait to see it all come together. Peace out, guys.